I am your host this week, Jill Jans, and this is my daughter, Guinevere Jans. We are with K9s for Veterans, and this show we're going to be doing a little bit of a backtrack, kind of, because when we were supposed to have her as a guest, it just so happened that the entire world shut down. So that was in about April of 2020? Yeah, that sounds about right. And we have now moved on into the July of 2021, but since April is the month of the military child and we were supposed to have her then and we didn't get a chance to interview her like we had planned, we're going to do it tonight because we want to know what it's like to be the daughter of a combat veteran and what that experience is like for the children who are so blessed as to have veterans as their parents. So, that all being said, I'm going to start with Gwenny. Why don't you introduce yourself and tell everybody how old you are?
Hi, I'm Guinevere Jans. I'm 10 years old.
She's 10 years old, she says. And why don't you tell us who your veteran is?
My veteran is my dad.
Okay. And do you know what branch he was in?
The Marines.
He was in the Marine Corps. Okay. Now, can you tell me what you know about his time in the service?
I know that he got blown up a few times. One driving a Humvee. I know that he got blown up multiple times and that he had to do certain exercises. I know that a lot of the time he was there, there was a time he told me a story actually. He was telling me about it and I was listening to him because we were on a car ride and he was telling me about it, but there was a big storm and he was one of the people protecting like the guns and stuff because everybody was sick. So
it's hard to remember the whole story, yeah. Isn't it? Okay. But her and her dad, a lot of the time when they're driving places, like to have conversations about what it was like when he was in the military, right? That's kind of when you guys talk about it?
Yeah.
When Guinevere was little, I decided that it was going to be important that she knew what happened with her father and what the struggles were going to be and how caring for a veteran was going to be a part of both of our lives and not just mine as his caregiver, but also hers as his daughter. But what I didn't realize is she's become like a secondary caregiver. She was about 2 years old when I had taught her how to give her father his medicine and to help out.
My little brother actually does it now.
Yeah, we were able to teach him because it's important that they are able to understand the significance of something as dangerous as medication, something as significant and dangerous as the different parts to caregiving can be. And she's always been kind of a part of that with me. That being said, I remember when she was in preschool and she came home and she had drawn a picture and it was a lot of red. And I said, "What is it?" And she said, "This is Daddy getting blown up in the Humvee." And that was when I realized that I had to give her a narrative and I had to give her what actually happened, but something that she could digest. So do you remember what you know about what happened when Daddy got blown up?
When he got blown up, I know a lot of the time that he drove a Humvee. Mm-hmm. And wasn't that like the first or second time he got blown up?
All the times he got blown up, he was in a Humvee. Yeah. But do you remember anything about what got injured in that blast?
I know his brain. That's why he got PTSD. And then, no, that's not why.
It's okay. It gets a little fuzzy because they're learning a lot of different acronyms. Because, I know it's hard for me to remember all the acronyms of the military stuff, considering I was not. But for the most part, she understands.
And he got...
What does TBI stand for?
I know what PTSD stands for.
Okay, go ahead. Give me that one. What does PTSD stand for?
Post-traumatic...
You got it.
Stress... disorder?
Yes, post-traumatic stress disorder. There you go. So, bear with us as this is all a work in progress. But so, post-traumatic stress disorder, that is the acronym PTSD is used for. Do you know what the difference between a TBI, which that stands for traumatic brain injury, and PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, is?
PTSD, there's a big difference because I have PTSD, my mom has PTSD.
We talk about how as they've learned as caregivers that you develop what's called more secondary PTSD. You're aware that different things are going to trigger the individual who has PTSD, so then they become a trigger for you as well, because you're trying to prevent that individual from experiencing those kind of things that would escalate their hypervigilant response. So that's what she's referring to. But the actual PTSD, your dad has PTSD, we have secondary. But the TBI is a traumatic brain injury, so that's in...
Because I know that he also got...
That's from the blast.
Yeah, I know he also got exposed to certain fumes.
The chemicals she's talking about, the burn pits and the depleted uranium, which we've talked about on here before. So what do you think is something that people should know about military kids?
You get exposed to more because you need to know more to understand, like, if there's medicine on the ground, you should tell an adult or you should pick it up and give it to them. So you need to know more about it in order to understand. And, like, sometimes my dad, he'll get, like, upset, so he'll yell at me, and sometimes it's around, like, the
trauma anniversary.
So that's a lot of the time what it is.
What did I always tell you about when Dad would get mad and yell?
Listen with your heart, not with your ears, which means, like, don't take it in as he means this. Like, if he yells at me, then he means that. It's, like, never going to change. But then listen with your ears. He's doing that because he doesn't have anything else to...
It's when you have a trauma anniversary, so 6 weeks before and 6 weeks after a trauma anniversary, they say that the PTSD is worse. And when you have worsened symptoms of PTSD, a lot of the time there's a lot of yelling, and it's not because the person wants to be mean or wants to be yelling or wants to be upset about the simplest or littlest thing. It's just because they can't control it, and they don't have the ability to do that right then. So when he would yell at her, I didn't want her to think that it was something that was actually
He means it.
Right. So I told her that she needs to listen with her heart and not her ears.
You tell me that a lot because he gets upset easy. I always say that we were talking about this in the car on our way here, that he acts more like my grandma and my mom acts like my grandpa, because it takes little for them to get upset, my dad and my grandma, but then they calm down really fast. So... And
that's a lot of the time Dad reacts like he's still in the military. Sometimes it's hard to remember that the kids are not his boots. But, he figures it out, and then we adjust. And I don't want her to take so much of that personally when it's not something that needs to be taken personally. So that's what I meant by listen with your heart and not your ears. When she was in preschool, we realized that having a social worker involved in her life and just our kids' lives for school would probably be a good idea, because they live and they have unique experiences with a veteran as a parent. So we've always done that, and we've always worked with a social worker at the school, so that things that are uniquely difficult or a unique struggle to that of a military child, it can be dealt with and handled with somebody outside of the house, because it's not always something that we're able to do or we're able to talk her through or walk her through. So is that something that you feel has that been helpful, do you think?
It's been very helpful, because sometimes there's like things you don't want to talk to with your parents.
Understandable. And that's all parents, and that's every kid. Yeah.
So it's nice having someone outside of the family to talk to, like at school, because I know I had a really bad headache and I had no clue why it was, and I didn't want to tell my mom because I thought she'd be upset at me. Okay. I don't know why, I was way younger, but then I told my social worker, and it actually helps a lot.
Well, that's good. And so that was something that we've done from get-go, and if there's anybody out there who's listening who has kids who are in a similar situation to us, that they're veterans themselves, I sit down with the social worker at the beginning of the year and I explain about my husband. I explain where we're at as a family, and then she sees them weekly or bi-weekly. And then that's something that when you do get near trauma anniversaries, it's a lot easier to navigate through. And I update the social worker, and we have a really good one that goes to or works at her school. Because something that I have done research on, I know about, is that more than half of kids of caregivers and veterans have emotional or school problems. They also have been reported to work with their parents to take care of the care recipient. So that's the veteran, and that's what we were talking about that Guinevere does and that her brother does. What other things do you do that you know are unique to you? I'm going to give you a hint. It has 4 legs. And
my dad is a service dog.
And what happened this year with both of that?
So my other puppy, Allie, she passed away.
That was our first service dog, and Allie was with us for she was with us since 2009, so that was before Guinevere was even born. And so since the time that she was a part of the family, Allie was there. And Allie was my husband's service dog, but unfortunately she passed away this year. And it was not only a family pet, but it was a part of our working circle around my husband and how we take care of him. And so because of the difficulty that happened afterwards, we decided that it was time to get another service dog.
And she is amazing. Her name is Stella. She is an amazing dog. She's a Bowser and what was it?
She's a Bowser.
She's a Bowser.
But even today, before we came here, we were sitting down to eat something at a place, and I looked at my husband and I said, "She probably needs some water." He said, "Yeah, I'm going to go get some." And before he could even finish saying that, 2 tables away, Guinevere had walked off and gotten some water for her. Because she's about, as aware as a 10-year-old could possibly be of the situations around her and what needs her attention and what could use her attention. And she does her best to give it
Because Dad, a lot of the time, he talks to me about, awareness. And I a lot of the time get in trouble for listening in on conversations that my mom and dad are having. But sometimes it's pretty good because then I can do stuff like that.
On our best days, I know that she's listening because she wants to know more so that she can help out more, so that she can have more of an informed opinion. And on the worst days, she's a 10-year-old kid who just wants to eavesdrop on adult conversations. So, it works. But, okay, so what do you think that people get wrong about military kids?
I'm honestly not sure.
Okay. What's the coolest thing about being the kid of a veteran?
That a lot of the time you have a service dog.
Okay, that's right. Okay. It's more specific to a disabled vet, but what do you think? What about all the cool things that Dad teaches you and does?
He teaches me he has this rule of treat, never keep that most kids wouldn't learn about.
That's about weapon safety. And what about maybe you learn how to do camouflage?
I know that we were with our cousins one time. He has his cami face paint, and it was 11 at night, and we're putting on our cami face paint.
They played hide and seek with actual camouflage face paint, and it was an intense game.
We were in complete black.
It was the military ops version for kids of hide and seek.
Yeah.
So I think you get to do things a lot more intensely.
Yeah. And a lot of the time you're more serious about certain stuff.
Like what?
Like games.
You're more competitive?
Yeah, you're more competitive. When we were playing that game, me and my dad, we went to hide somewhere because it was 2 teams versus 2 teams. And we jumped over 3 fences.
You guys are very competitive, that is true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so what else? what do you think is something that the parents of kids who are like you should know? Or what do we need to know that we're not aware of?
I honestly tell you everything, so I'm not sure.
Do you think that other families that are like ours would benefit from knowing anything?
Honestly, I can't think of anything. Because the first thing that comes to mind is listen with your heart and not with your ears is something a lot of people should tell. A lot of people should know. If they have, like, been in their military, or honestly, any branch is...
Oh, we got a caller. I'm going to take that. Hello? You're on with Jill and Guinevere.
Hi. I had a question. I mean, everybody knows how much training the dogs have to go through, but when a dog comes to...
Hang on one second. I'm having a really hard time hearing you.
Okay. When a dog comes to your family, do you have to train with the dog? Does the family train with the dog?
Yes.
Yes. And what is that like?
Did you say, what is that like?
Yes. Can you describe it?
What's the training with Stella like? Is that what she asked?
Yes.
Okay.
It's a lot of the time, sometimes it can be hard, sometimes it can be easy.
But it depends. The training with the service dog is, it's a lot of times it's person specific to what the needs are of that veteran themselves.
Like a lot of the time you can't play with the dog because they're training.
And that's one thing we had to work on with ourselves at home was that the kids can't treat her like a normal pet.
Because we can't give her treats. We're not.
They can't. Now that's my husband, who's the handler. Her handler can, but it has to be a lot more regimented than an average family pet.
Yeah, because we're allowed to feed her and we're allowed to do stuff like that, but as long as our father is with us.
Yes, a lot of it is very much, everything kind of has to get run back through my husband, and we have to make sure that everything is going to go to the benefit of her learning how to be a service dog and being then able to be taken out into public places, because that's where the biggest benefit is for having her. I mean, years ago, before we had our original service dog, my husband wouldn't go into pretty much any public place because he didn't feel safe. That's where a lot of the bombings and whatnot happened during combat, so it was very uncomfortable for him. And once we got a service dog, there was somebody there who had the ability to watch over the areas that he couldn't, that was automatically doing that without him thinking about it. And then in situations that were safer, that he felt safer, that gave him the opportunity to talk about what happened to him and his experience and what he's dealing with his PTSD and the whole story with it, because people would come up to pet the dog. And then they'd say, well, why do you have her? And then he'd go on and elaborate as to what he felt comfortable talking about at that point in time.
Yeah, because I remember people will ask about it, like if they have service dogs in training, like Stella, she wears her, what is it called?
Her vest.
Her vest, like everywhere, if we're in public. So, our dad, he will like,
Her dad.
my dad, he'll like tell them, like people sometimes ask questions about it, like, oh, where'd you get your dog? Do you know like good organizations and stuff like that? Like the other day in public, people were like petting her, and Dad just had to leave it because she needs to learn that.
One of the things that my husband's comfortable with, that majority of service dogs that I know their handlers are not, is he's comfortable with people petting her. But it's, of course, after it's been asked and he's okayed it, which that's, once again, each veteran and service dog, it's specific to their needs. At home, the things that the service dogs helped with was notifying me of any seizures that my husband would have before he would have them, which that's just
It helps a lot.
So there's a lot of different things that
Different-
go into the training that it's different parts making.
Different dogs have different service dogs have different things that they do,
Right.
like you were saying.
They have different tasks.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like certain dogs can tell if they have cancer and stuff like that.
Well, that's
not a myth.
but it depends on what the veteran needs, because some need more physical, like help walking, and that would be more of a training thing. Whereas I think that my husband does a little bit more with his specific needs with his dog training himself. But then we also go through the organization K9 for Veterans, and weekly he goes and has her trained with a trainer there. And I think that's more of for out in like the public spaces and all of that kind of stuff, so that she's well. I don't want to say
Exposed?
no. I was gonna say she was fluent, but that wouldn't work. But so she's well trained. There you go. That's one. So she's well trained in what is okay and what is not for service dogs, and what. Yeah. Hopefully that answers your question. I believe that we don't have her on the line anymore. I can't hear. Okay. So, I'm going to throw some statistics out at you guys in our last few minutes here. One of them is from the Family Caregiver Alliance and the National Center for Caregiving. It's military caregivers with kids say 7 out of 10 or 69% have sacrificed the amount of time they spent with their kids because of their role as a caregiver.
You're 90% of the time with us.
Yes, I am 90% of the time with you, but am I always with you?
No.
So that's a lot of the time, I think, what is meant by that.
But you include us more. Like with making his medicine.
So I include them a lot more in what my responsibilities are, because I know that I have to take care of certain things, and I know that they're just go along with whatever's going on kind of kids. So I've taught them things, and in teaching them things, that's given us time together, and that's also taking care of their dad. So it just kind of works when we let it. Mm-hmm. But when we try to make things into something that we think it should be, and we try to force things, then it doesn't work. Mm-hmm. So when Guinevere wants us all to have a game night, or when I want us all to sit down and read a book together, or when we're trying to do something that we just don't have the ability to do right at that moment in time, that's when we have problems. Mm-hmm. Because everybody's trying so hard their best, and sometimes that just doesn't work. But 50% of post 9/11 caregivers reported that they work together with their children to take care of their care recipient, which I mentioned before. More than half, or 57%, say that their kids have had emotional or school problems. Or social problems. Sorry, go on.
I don't have that many social problems.
That's probably what you do more. Like educationally, she gets straight A's. But A pluses. But socially, she doesn't always choose what would be appropriate in certain situations. And yeah. I think that that's something she inherited a little bit from Dad, because with the PTSD and the TBI, he doesn't always have an awareness of that. So you learn what you're around, and it's okay, because we can work on that, and we do work on that. Mm-hmm. And we're very open, and we're honest, and we say things that we know we need to say when they need to be said. Mm-hmm. What do you think that you would like to leave our viewers with today? Besides listen with your heart, not your ears.
You need to respect veterans more, because some people don't respect them. Or you need to learn about them more. Because a lot of people will say, oh, they just did this and they can understand some stuff. They understand a lot more than you think. They have a lot of people
instrumental to educate ourselves and others, including kids in school. That's why we started our red program at Guinevere's school when she was young. One Friday a month we would go in and we would have a topic, whether it was the different branches of the military or the different parts of a traumatic brain injury. And we would teach them about those different things.
So we're going to wrap up and say thank you for bearing with us through this first interview with a 10-year-old, a military kid. And I'm going to thank you, Guinevere, and I'm going to thank your dad for being okay with all of this too. So, and Mike, we'll see you next week. And I think that's it.